So welcome back from break. I want to welcome also Marie for appearing today. And we were just having a conversation backstage, and I was updating her a little bit on the conference up to this point. And I was telling her about the different speakers we had, from Otto to Dan Harris to Eileen Fisher. And I said, well, one of the things that we haven't had yet, and that I was kind of looking for her to help present, was the more independent entrepreneur, and that voice of the people who are feeling like, wow, there's something I want to bring into the world, and I feel called to do that somewhat as a solo project, and what that process is like. And Marie hosts a very popular B-School and very popular YouTube channel where she really engages thousands and thousands of people to come to you who are looking for guidance about, I have this vision, I want to bring it into the world, I need to make a living, how do I do that? Voice from above. So I want to begin by just saying, what do you feel like is driving so much of this energy towards entrepreneurship, but I think even more so purposeful entrepreneurship, which I feel like is the community that you have helped to grow and helped to engage with? What do you think is behind that? That people want to make a living, they want alignment, but they also want this other element of purpose.
Absolutely. I think there's many things in our culture right now that have been bubbling up over the last 10 to 15 years. You know, job security, it's a thing of the past, right? That no longer exists really in our culture. The job for life is dead. I think over a third of Americans are considered independent workers, meaning freelance workers. And when I heard this stat, it kind of speaks to this connection with meaning, that over 70% of Americans are miserable at work. Miserable at work. And it's costing us between about 420 and 550, get this, $1 billion per year in lost productivity. Couple that with, you know, there's shows like Shark Tank. There are different things, I think, in our culture that have started to sensationalize or even give celebrity to business owners. And so you combine all of these things, and all of a sudden in the zeitgeist, it's like people want to do their own thing. And then, of course, there's technology. Never before has it been so easy. If you have an idea, if there's something that you want to create, if there's a message that you want to put out, we have these connection machines at our fingertips where we can connect with virtually anyone around the world. And so I think you take all of that together and you have this incredible soup that creates this desire to do our own thing and to do it in our way. And I know in my own experience, you know, my first gig out of college was on Wall Street, on the New York Stock Exchange. This is pre everything. This is like just out of college, 21 years old, and I knew one of my drives, I wanted to be really successful, but not just to like get shoes. I knew I wanted to make money because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to take care of my family. I wanted to be able to contribute to causes that I believe in. And so I knew in order to do that, in my own mind, I was like, well, I want to make a lot of money and make this stuff happen. But when I was on Wall Street, even though so many people that I worked with, multi-millionaires, I mean, the money was ridiculous. While they were financially rich, they were spiritually bankrupt. And I felt like there was a part of me that was dying inside. And I said, this is not my path. I don't know what my path is, but I need to leave this because I feel sick. And so I think many people feel like that. You can find yourself in job and job and job, and you want to do great work in the world. You're giving it your best, but some little voice inside is saying, this isn't me. This isn't me. And I kept having that voice until finally I left the corporate world and started my own business.
But it wasn't that simple, my guess is.
Oh, no,
so
that's
can you talk about a little bit about your process?
Yeah.
In terms of finding what you do now, which my guess is feels like that alignment is there very strongly.
It's complete. I feel like probably for the past 10 years or so, I've known this is my life's work. But you know, when I was at Wall Street and knew that where I wasn't it, that's all I knew. I was like, I know I'm meant to do something else. I don't know what that something else is. And that was really painful. I remember sitting on the church steps right outside of the floor of the stock exchange talking to my parents, crying, because I felt like such a failure. the only things I knew, I was interested in business, I loved business, and I loved creativity. And I was like, well, how can I merge these two worlds? And the answer that came to my mind was the world of publishing. I was like, oh, magazine publishing. I love magazines. There's business, there's creativity. Let me try this. So I worked, I got a gig at Gourmet magazine in the ad sales department. And I'm a girl, I love food, so this was great for me because they sat my desk right near the test kitchen, so snacks would come all the time. That was awesome. But doing ad sales and being an assistant, I could look ahead at the corporate ladder and I saw, wow, I don't want to be the publisher of this magazine. I don't want to be my boss. What am I doing here then? I felt like I was then wasting their time and mine. And this is when I started to get that panic. I don't know if anyone can associate with this. You try different things and you keep getting that same feeling inside, like this isn't it. So I thought, well, maybe I tried too much on the business side. I need a little more creativity. So I went to the fashion side, Mademoiselle magazine, and I was like, okay, this is great. Clothes, really fun for a young woman. People were nice. But after about 3 or 4 months, I was like, I don't want to be the editor-in-chief of a magazine. Oh my goodness. I knew I had all this potential, but I felt like time was starting to pass by faster and faster, and I wasn't in my zone. And I was on the internet one day when I probably shouldn't have been. And I stumbled across an article about what was a new, at the time, profession called life coaching. You got to get this. I was 23. In my head, I was rolling my eyes at myself. Who is going to hire a 23-year-old life coach? Like, I haven't even lived enough of a life already, but I couldn't deny that in my heart and in my soul, there was something in there that made me more alive than anything I had studied in school, anything I'd experienced anywhere. And so I signed up on the spot for this 3-year life and business coach training, and I did it at night while I worked for Condé Nast during the day. And then eventually I got a job offer for Vogue. That was a promotion, and that was my fork in the road. It was like, okay, you're either gonna work at the best fashion magazine in the whole world, which is not really a bad path to go on, or you're gonna quit and do this weird life coaching thing at 23 with no money, no experience starting a business, no funds, no anything. So of course I quit. And I started bartending and waiting tables and being a personal assistant and cleaning people's toilets and doing anything that I could to earn enough money so that I could figure out how to run a business, and specifically how to start a life coaching business.
And what were some of the key learnings in the early days that you feel like were hardly earned that came through?
The fact that when you're good at whatever you're good at, so for me, I was so passionate about spirituality and personal development and all of the tools that come in that toolbox. But recognizing you also have to know how to run a business. And being good at something isn't the same thing as being able to run a business doing that thing. And I recognized very quickly that I needed to understand how to market, and I wanted to use these new online tools, specifically because I was so embarrassed about my age, because I was so young, that I wanted to use the internet, which I did, to mask my age. And I never lied, but I got headshots done that made me look much older than I was, and I put up a website, and all of my clients came to me through the internet. And if they didn't ask how old I was, I didn't tell them. I just did the best work I could. But that key lesson about even if you love something, and even if it's your passion, you have to also get passionate about entrepreneurship.
If you want to make a living at it.
If you want to make a living at it as a solo entrepreneur, as a business owner.
Yeah. And can you talk a little, you had mentioned in the past that Eckhart Tolle's work had an impact on you, and I'm curious how it's had and how that has impacted your work.
So part of what was also challenging for me when I was starting off as a coach was recognizing the truth that I didn't just want to be a coach. I loved writing, I loved hip hop, I loved dance, I loved fitness. There were all these different things that I was passionate about, and while I was growing my personal coaching practice, I kept feeling conflicted because I didn't want to just be one thing. Has anyone ever felt that way? Yeah. So I would listen to the voices in my head, which were and basically the voices in my head were so trained by traditional wisdom and traditional thoughts about you have to pick a niche, you have to narrow down, you have to choose one thing and be good for it, be really good at it, and that's how you'll be known. And when I realized that that voice wasn't the voice I should listen to, that there was this truth, that I was this multi-passionate person, and that living in the present moment, which Eckhart teaches, was all about really listening to your own inner guidance and being in the here and now and not stressing so much up here. That really opened the door for me to say, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna go take dance classes. I'm gonna go learn about this. I'm gonna do all these different things. And that training to be in the moment and to listen to my own inner guidance allowed me to disconnect from all the BS voices in my head that were torturing me. Torturing me.
So just being aware that that voice was there and that that wasn't the ultimate, is that what shifted it, or did you do things around that?
You know,
because I think that's a lot of what we grapple with, right? We grapple with either the voice of what if I really screw this up?
Yeah.
Like what if I actually follow my heart and I don't make a living at it and all my friends say you suck, see, I told you so. Eckhart actually talked about when he was moving once, his parents said, really, you're gonna do this again? Like they'd seen him as a failure for years, and then anyways, but there's always that voice. It's like, yeah, but you might just really fail.
Yeah, and you know, I think all of us have that, and there's perhaps some of them, like a myth that many of us can think, especially when we're first starting out, that successful people don't have the voice anymore. That's total crap. Anyone that you've ever seen, anyone that I've encountered, and I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of people and talk to them, no matter how successful, how accomplished, how well known, they still have those voices of self-doubt. They still get afraid. They still question, am I going in the right direction? What's next for me? And I think the more that we can recognize that that voice of basically you suck is universal, and we can disengage from that and actually engage with what we want in our lives, the happier we're gonna be. And this is the other thing, none of us know. It's like everything that I've learned and I've been able to do in my business, we never know what's gonna work. We treat every single thing as an experiment. That's the only way that you learn. I think 99% of what each of us need to do to learn and grow, not only as business people, but also as human beings, if we're gonna grow, it means that we've never done that before. It's gonna be uncomfortable. And to be okay in that uncertainty and that discomfort is where the juice of life lives.
Yeah. But so there's some way in which when I see you, it seems like you have a bit of like a thriving on that edge. And I think there's this, I don't know if the word goofiness, but if you've seen Marie's videos, she's very playful, she's dancing, she's using images, she's just like running with this creative force. And I'm wondering how you came about your own natural, what feels to be your own natural expression. That's not going to be everybody's natural expression.
Absolutely.
But there's very few videos on spirituality that have somebody dancing and playing and goofing around and you know, just using that as a fun, engaging way, which seems very natural to you.
Yeah, so I have been this way, meaning goofy, silly, since I was very, very little. And when I first started my coaching practice when I was 23, I tried to be what I thought in my mind was a businesswoman. I had this idea of like a power suit and some like big old shoulder pads, and I would speak in a certain way. And I remember trying to do that, and I felt horrible. Like I felt so stunted. It was like I had writer's block, I had speaker's block. I just felt like I was in somebody else's skin. And it was so painful for me that I was just like, I can't do this. But I really want to do this thing. I'm going to let go of my idea of who I think I should be and talk about the fact I'm from Jersey. I don't use proper language all the time. I have kind of a weird sense of humor. I love zombies, Smurfs, all kinds of things. And what would happen if I actually just expressed that? And something funny actually did happen is not only did I find myself to be more creative, I found myself more fulfilled, and people actually connected with me more. I didn't feel like I had to push myself out into the world. It was more like things started to come to me. And I didn't feel like there was so much of a separation between my workday and the rest of my life, which felt great.
Now I'm a coach, now I'm a person.
Exactly.
And so what do you feel like is the process that people go through in order to find that? Is it just being able to give oneself the permission to try different things, and then eventually one suit just kind of fits, or one?
Well, I think there's a couple of, it really depends on the specifics and the context of what we're talking about. If it's about finding your own voice or finding what feels comfortable for you, a really great kind of simple trick that I always try and teach people is called the friend filter. You know, if you're writing an email to anyone or you're expressing yourself, is that the way that you would say it to a friend? Are those the analogies that you would use? Is that the language that you would use? Obviously, we want to be conscious of being professional, but professional, oh wow, somebody's got some banging music. I heard that. Professional doesn't always mean stiff and lifeless. You can be absolutely professional, but you don't have to be boring, and you can actually have a pulse and a personality. And so there's another test that we often use. It's like the alien test. Like if you create anything and you showed it to someone who knows you really well, would they say, you didn't do that? Did an alien take over your body and create this? Because that has no relation to you. And you can do that, and you can start to feel out from within your own unique expression, whatever that is.
Right. So I think there's some people who find that they might work at Eileen Fisher, and there's actually a lot of freedom to bring out that unique self within that environment. There's other people in situations where that creative voice is not supported within their current vocational situation. What do you think the process is for people who better understand whether they should stay within their own situation and see how they can bring that forth, or whether to go on a more of a solo path which has its own challenges and drawbacks? Like, what have you found from working with so many entrepreneurs that might help people better sense, like, all right, which path has worked for me? Because I know a lot of people who go out on their own and they realize, oh shit, what am I doing? I don't know how I'm gonna pay rent. Like, I didn't expect this level of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense from working with so many entrepreneurs about how that process works?
You know, it's interesting. I once took one of these personality tests. I don't know if any of y'all have done that. Those personality tests that tell you like your strengths and all the stuff that you do. And I took one that was about figuring out the kind of person I was. And basically the test came back and said, you should not be an entrepreneur. This was already after I started my business. Like, this is the worst thing. You are not cut out for it. Do you know that I looked at that test and I wanted to strangle the test. I was like, test, watch this. So I think that any of us, regardless of what you feel your DNA makeup is, if you really want to do your own thing, you will work harder and longer than probably you've ever worked in your life. The first couple of years, and this isn't always true, these are just general observations, there's always some outliers. But generally, you're never gonna earn as much money in those first couple years as you will during a steady job. So if you're willing to work your buns off, not make that much money, whether you have a day job, you have savings, you've worked out different ways to kind of get things going, if you're willing to give that a go and be honest with yourself along the way, I wanna understand marketing, I wanna understand how to attract talent. I want to understand how to use this incredible tool that we have called the internet to connect with people around the world. And also, if there's a bigger why for your business beyond just making money, you've got the general ingredients to do something great. But here's the thing I often like to say. If you feel this calling in you to give it a go, give it a go. And I always like to look at what truly is the worst thing that could happen. You give it a go for a few years, you learn a ton of things about yourself and about the world, and you wind up going on to your next adventure. You may meet the perfect company that you want to join, and you can bring your entrepreneurial spirit in there. The one thing that I live by is clarity comes from engagement, not thought. Clarity comes from engagement, not thought. Rarely will we find our answer thinking our way through it, but we always find our truth when we have the courage to step out, to try something, to experiment, and then to feel our way from the inside out. I remember when I was torturing myself in my head, do or do I not want to try and be a dancer at 25, which I know this is gonna sound weird, but in the dance world, that's like over the hill. That's like which is insane to me, but it is true. Most of those people have been dancing since they were like out of the womb.
Like gymnasts.
Yes, like professionals by the time they're 16 or 17. So me strutting in as a white girl wanting to do hip hop at 25 was like, no, this does not make sense. But I couldn't deny that I really wanted to do it. And rather than continuing to torture myself, I said, you know what, let me actually just go take a professional dance class. That will be instructive. I got my butt in a dance class, and I remember sitting down on that wooden floor, and I started crying because it felt so right. Wow. But I tortured myself probably for at least 3 years thinking about it, versus just, getting myself in a class. So that idea of clarity comes from engagement, not thought. I think that is what will help each of us find our truth over any book, over any advisor, over any guru. It's your own guru of action that'll get your clarity.
Excellent, thank you. So we have some time for some questions. I was telling Marie backstage, I was like, I could ask you a bunch of questions. I'm gonna force myself to stop at a certain point and open it up to the audience, because I know there's a lot of people here who have been grappling and exploring some of these same questions. So we have a mic runner, so if you want to raise your hand.
I see one back there.
Oh yeah, and I was also given the guidance to always look for the back first, because the tendency is to look in the front.
And you guys, I love Q's and A's. If you don't know my show, a big part of it is Q&A Tuesday, so this is like my favorite.
Hello, thank you for a great presentation. So you said at the beginning that 70% of Americans are miserable at work.
Yeah.
And I started my business when I was 22. So kind of went through a lot of the same things that you did as an entrepreneur. And so my question is, how do you not recreate the situation where now you employ 70% of miserable Americans? How do you handle it? What's your advice on that?
Awesome question. Culture is really important for my company. We're a virtual team, so I have people from Hawaii to Santa Barbara to Indiana to Massachusetts, Rhode Island. We're spread out all over the place. And for me, I'm a very straightforward person. So when we're going through the hiring process for anyone, we're very honest and transparent about what you need to thrive and what about our company, if this doesn't work for you, you will be miserable. So the first thing is to try and be absolutely authentic, transparent, straightforward about the jobs that we're offering and we're creating. The second thing is I have a secret tool that has helped us so much in our business. It was originally created for relationships, but they've now actually written a book for the workplace. So it's Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages. We still use the love languages one because I'm touchy-feely like that, but they have the appreciation and love languages written by him as well. And so that's one of the first things that when anyone comes on our team, we understand how do they most feel loved and appreciated. And I think stripping away work, what we want as human beings more than anything is to feel heard, it's to feel listened to, it's to feel valued and feel appreciated. But each of us receive that in a very unique way. And so as a leader, you need to understand how to feed your team in a way that they can most receive it, and that's been a really crucial tool for us.
Thank you. See somebody's hand here.
Hi, thanks so much.
You can stand up and just say your name. So
I'm Peter.
Hi, Peter.
What you just said just resonated just so deeply with me because I'm kind of on a similar path. I mean, it took me a little longer. I'm a little older than you. You were 21 when you decided that you were going to just get away from it all. But every word you just said was just so inspiring to me. And so thank you. My question is, I'm kind of on this path right now, and I find that I have these inspirations of motivation where I get things done and work on my website and reach out, and then I have these kind of setbacks where I'm like, the voices come back, and I have this period of unproductivity.
Yeah.
How did you find you kept the momentum just going strong and bringing yourself back like a meditation practice?
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you, what really did it for me at first was by necessity because excuse me?
What did you buy in a? I misunderstood you.
Oh.
You said what really helped me at first was?
What really helped me at first was by necessity, I was super, super busy. So I worked every single night, bartending, personal assisting, doing whatever I needed to do. I'm sure you've all heard that saying, you want something done, give it to a busy person. So the fact that I needed that structure and I couldn't really take a break, I had to feed myself. I had to pay my rent. So it was like I couldn't take my foot off the gas. Now, I didn't burn myself out. I was very enthusiastic about it. But I think the more that you can really look at, what are the critical things that need to get done to push my business forward? And then, of course, taking time off is important. But the practice is daily, don't listen to that voice in your head. That needs to be as important as brushing your teeth, as important as meditation, is recognizing when it doesn't really matter, I can take a week off or whatever, and training yourself no, my life does matter. My gift does matter. There are people out there that need what I have to offer. And that's one of the things I truly believe, is that every single human being on this planet has a unique set of gifts that they are only here to give. And if you don't give them, you are stealing from those who need you most. And when you have that level of depth with your responsibility for your genius, it's a lot easier to say to the voices in your head and get out there and serve.
Wow.
The jersey has to come out, so forgive me.
So where's our mic? Do you want to find somebody? Maybe go, if we can take turns going back from the big front to the back, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I left the corporate world 4 years ago and became an entrepreneur. And I've never been happier, never been more successful. And I find myself, because I'm so happy now, avoiding thinking about the future. So avoiding setting 5-year goals for my company or 3-year goals, because I don't want to turn back into the person that I was before, which was this insatiable need to grow and climb. So I'm interested in knowing how you set goals for the future when it's your own company to avoid where you were before.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge, huge fan of it's an exercise that's inspired by an author named Cameron Herold, and he wrote a book called Double Double. The book is fantastic. That particular book, the framework is about how to double your revenues and your profits and all this stuff. What I'm talking about is an exercise in the first chapter. You can download it for free online. It's called the painted picture. And the idea is this, that you lean out 3 years into your future and you describe your business with such precision and clarity and vision, but not just your business, your life. How do you want to feel? How do your employees want to feel? What are the kind of projects that you want to work on? How often do you want to work? What's the revenue? What's the profit? It's literally having a blank canvas and painting your ideal painted picture. And we do that in my company. It works for a few reasons. First of all, it's proven visualization is a really amazing tool. You know, Olympic athletes use it as a way to train themselves and to practice living into something that is really glorious for them. Second thing that it does is when you have a team, and when especially you're thinking about hiring employees, it's really ideal for them to say, oh, I like where y'all are going. I want to get on that train, versus what the heck is this? So having alignment within your team is really good. The third reason it's important is because if you have anyone in your life, like a spouse, significant other, children, for them to be able to see the vision that you're creating, why it's important to you, where everyone's going, creates alignment in the home. And then also, it's a blueprint. It's not like you're writing this in stone, and this is where the author and I disagree. So we've talked about this, and he's like, no, Marie, you know, once you create that painted picture, you must stay on track. And I'm like, I got a little more flexibility, because you know, if I start going into year 1 or year 2, and then all of a sudden opportunities present themselves, or learnings present themselves, or awarenesses happen, where then you take your painted picture and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna adjust this slightly. For me, it's a model that works a little bit better, but it's great because it keeps everyone aligned. And this way, you know, I thought you brought up a really key point. Growth for growth's sake is a sickness. And it's really, really important to know that bigger isn't always better. You know, and oftentimes, I remember, especially in my early days, people were like, why don't you get funding? Why don't you do this? Why don't you want to have, and I'm like, I don't want that. That is not my truth. This is my truth. Why don't you want a TV show? I have a TV show. It's online exactly where I want it. I can do weird things like ride unicorns. I can say whatever I want. I can dance hip hop. I can wear wigs and pretend I'm Daryl Hall and John Oates because I want to sing.
She's done all this, by the way.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? So I think you bring up a beautiful, beautiful point for all of us, is that the beautiful and ideal business for you is going to be a unique expression of what you want, not what the world says success is. So you can stay at your own level. You might have different ways to move around the pieces of your puzzle, but you don't have to be fearful of turning into what you don't want. When you stay aware on a moment-to-moment basis and you're constantly checking in, are these the projects that I want to work on? Are these the people I want to work with? Is this the direction I want to take my company? You don't have to fear those things.
Okay.
Raise your hands up high.
We have somebody
oh,
here.
we got someone over there.
Oh, somebody over there. Christina?
Hello, Marie. I love your show. I've seen your show a number of times. My name is Christina. My question is around, I guess, what this whole conference is about, especially when you have a business that's an online business. How do you deal with the distraction? Because that's kind of what I've been having a challenge with, is trying to stay focused on the things that I want to do. Most of it is online. But then if your business is primarily online, you have all these other things coming at you, social media, your own sort of input, output. And I'm just wondering, how do you deal with that for yourself building your company online and dealing with the distraction of things coming in?
Great question. I think it's a challenge that all of us face. So this is interesting. So we talked about the painted picture right now. What we do in my company, we actually take our painted picture. We have company retreats a few times a year, and we look at that painted picture and we take what we want to see happen over the next 12 months from that painted picture, and we create a huge master list, and we transfer that into a calendar. And then we take that calendar and it breaks down into tasks and priorities. So the whole company knows what we're doing on a weekly, monthly basis to ideally get where we want to go. Again, we build in flexibility, we build in the fact that plans don't always work as you hope they would, but it's a guidepost. And for me, I always think about what's urgent versus what's important. What's important for me are usually things that are very quiet. My own writing, creating the best shows for Marie TV I possibly can, improving the content for B-School. There's initiatives that aren't loud, but they're very, very important to me and important to the company. Now, what's urgent? Urgents are things that are loud, text messages, social media, email coming in. And every single day, you have to be the master of doing what's important and ignoring what's urgent. Because you will always get done what's urgent because it's urgent, but you leave that stuff for the end of the day. And you have to really, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Peter, when you have to value your gift in this world and recognize there's so much noise, there's so many shiny objects, and you have to be what Oprah likes to call the master of my fate, the captain of my soul. And that means directing your attention and your energy in each moment to what really matters most. And that's going to include your family, that's going to include your health, and that's not going to include 90% of the bullshit noise that comes through on social media and other blogs and comparing yourself to everybody else and who's farther ahead and what's going on and I should be doing this by now. That needs to go to the side.
Thank you.
You're welcome.